Well guys, you can see now that the figure, after adding the rim lining, the dark rim lining, painting all the shadow planes with this medium dark brown, has gained a lot of definition, especially if we compare the definition of the figure right now in comparison with the first stage of the figure when we only applied the base coats in each element. So you can also notice that all the planes of shadows like this one are painting in a flat way. I mean, I apply one or two layers of the color, but I didn't make any gradient, any glaze on these different planes. This is painting by planes, planes of shadow, planes of light. This is very important when talking about volumetry. And well, after doing that, the figure has gained a lot of definition, as I said. So what we are going to do right now is to apply the light planes with in this case with a light gray, and we will take advantage of this process, making heads highlighting and also adding some reflections in the metal parts. For example, in these curved areas of the feet, we can apply a rough light, and if you want to make it lightly blended, you can apply the layer by patching. Instead of base coats or too many glazes, you can apply it by doing some patching technique, like pointing, lightly pointing with the tip of the brush, and concentrating the pigment in the more reflective area. To make these small elements of the leg, you have to be a bit more careful and precise, obviously, and to create the reflections in the tubes of or the tube of the weapon. As you see, I have chosen a line of reflection that is in the main view, and a secondary one, which is this one, in the 3/4 view or lateral view of the figure, to make it interesting in this angle as well. And to blend in big areas like this one, you can apply glazes with a medium bluish tone, gray bluish tone, and you can see that only by patching this diluted paint, you can see the dilution is not too diluted as you see in the paper, but the secret is more focus, or is more in how you apply this color by pointing with the tip of the brush and concentrating the drop of the paint in the cut between colors. And now I'm outlining with this off-white, pure white, all the edges, which will create the final definition that we need to create this basic non-metallic effect. In the tubes, for example, you can outline the extremes or the sides of each piece like this, and trace a small bright next to it, but you don't have to make all the line again. You can see how with this easy step-by-step of grace, we have achieved a more or less believable non-metallic metal that we can improve a bit more in the next steps by adding a bit more contrast. In this case, for example, with this dark gray, we are darkening a bit more some of the planes. You can see in this area how by painting these two planes with dark gray, we have defined this small piece of the weapon. And also we can add some reflections in very flat and big areas just by tracing some lines, boosting the effect of something reflective. It's usually a good idea to highlight the edges twice, because the white it's a hard covering paint color, and if you trace 2 times you will gain extra reflection in the edges or in the reflections that you have created. Areas like the fingers or heavily detailed areas like the inner parts of the legs are important to be outlined carefully to gain definition, because if not they are very confusing. And now I'm outlining, as you see, focusing in the point where the three lines converge in the peak of the different angles, making more white and more thick the edge highlighting applied there. After outlining, obviously maybe you commit some mistakes, so it's a good moment to fix them. For example, here in the helmet, I'm fixing the rim dark lining to gain definition once again. Be careful, obviously, when trying to define those complex and tiny areas. And now we are going to outline the yellow armor. I will try with this white mixed with the yellow. You can also use maybe a ice yellow, for example, or something similar, which at the end is what I'm creating with this mix of white with the yellow of the Vallejo Gem Air paint. You can see in the paper, which is more or less similar. This more yellowish in this case, but you can mix the ice yellow with the yellow and probably you will obtain something similar. So with this color, you have to outline the edges, and also you can recover and add more luminosity in different areas and different planes of light. In this case, the helmet, which has some stains of paint that I bought them when painting. It's a failure, obviously, but I'm fixing it right now, adding this color and this frontal plane of light of the armor and other volumes that are exposed to the light has to be painted with this paint. And because it is mixed with the previous Vallejo semi-transparent airbrush color, it has some transparent properties, so we can glaze with the color, moving the drop in the direction we want and creating 2 layers of color without mixing new ones because of the transparency of the color. It is like a glaze, but without adding any water in the wet palette. But at the end is the same. And as you see, the glazing is very, very easy. I'm just pointing with the brush all the time. I'm not doing homogeneous brush strokes. I'm trying to just move the drop and create irregular edges in between colors, so the transition that we perceive is more pure, more efficient. And as you see in the wet palette, they have mixed blue with white and a bit of yellow, so I have achieved some kind of turquoise color. And this one could be useful to outline some areas of the armor because of the contrast that we are generating, because the temperature contrast between colors. Blue is a cold color, yellow is a warm color, so the contrast between them will be very high. It's something that I like, but not to use in all the armor. So maybe we can use this kind of contrast in specific areas or specific edges of the armor that are more exposed to the main view. It's just a theory color information that I add here for your interest. But it's up to you to use it or not. The figure will work perfectly only using the white and yellow to highlight the edges. Okay, you don't need to do that. You can see how I push the lights in some areas by adding 2 or 3 layers, but the layers are added by stippling or by pointing with the tip of the brush and a medium dilute paint to create the transition. And now something that is very, very interesting when painting figures like this is to add some details somewhere, maybe with different colors, stripes or whatever, something that they have learned from a muse studio, a great painter and a great friend. So sometimes instead of leaving it in a pure yellow everything, you can add some stripes, even numbers if your skill is enough, to add this kind of details to the figure, and you don't need to blend them. You only need to place them in a pure color, in this case this turquoise color, and the figure will be much more interesting and at the end great to see in the table. You need to have a medium dilution, a medium low dilution maybe, with a color that is fluid. So try to avoid colors like scale 75, which are not very fluid. Or you can add some maybe some acrylic retarder or something like this. But with almost any color you will achieve this kind of freehands. And I prefer always to start from the inner part of the drawing and expand it to the sides, so you can always correct these stripes or whatever, because you are starting with the inside part of the drawing. So this is the reason because I always painting a thin line in the middle and then expand it, making it wider. The eyes is very easy to make, white and a glaze of blue. And this is something important. Don't forget to outline again the edges in the areas where you have placed the freehands, obviously with a light blue. And now the final touches of the figure are to add some weathering. So to make the scratches, I will add some brown to the wet palette. In this case, it's not the gamer brown because you need a very thick paint, or at least a thick paint, to make this kind of effects. So I take any other brown, a chocolate brown or armor brown from the normal Vallejo or any other brand range. And you need to take it directly from the barrel and to dry a bit the brush, so it is not very loaded, and to add the scratches in the edges, not in all the edges, but in the edges of the armor mainly, because it's the area more exposed to the damage. My recommendation is to point randomly, and in some areas or in some parts of the armor you can add some very thin lines like this one, or small dots. You have to make fast traces and very subtle dots in the armor. If you make a very thick cut or a very big dot in the middle of the armor, it will be very noticeable and not very believable. As the paint becomes dry in the brush, you can also take advantage of this and wrap very gentle in some parts of the armor to create different damage, because the paint is very dry and will only leave very subtle traces on the surface. And here, this is a mistake, obviously, a yellow a yellow spot in the metallic part, but it's something very interesting because it looks like a reflection of the yellow. So sometimes the mistakes are very useful, and I'm trying always to pay attention to this kind of failures in the painting process, because sometimes are very interesting and a happy discovering. So as it is working very well and it's a good idea, something that I haven't think about it before when doing the process. Now I'm pushing this effect by adding yellow highlights in the edges that simulates the different reflections of the armor in different areas. At the end, this is a reflective material that can reflect the ceramic look, yellow armor of the mech, of the figure. And adding this kind of reflection somewhere, you don't have to add them in all the reflections or in all the parts of the figure, but maybe in the more interesting ones, it's a good idea. Well, guys, as this is the figure finished, I think it looks great. Even for this distance, this is a very big picture, and the figure looks defined and well interpreted with contrast and very, as I said, defined, despite of the fact that it's a infinity figure with two colors. So at the end, something that I said all the time is that a figure with all the colors well placed in the correct areas and outlined and interpreted with the correct planes of light and shadow will look amazing even for a close distance, not only in the distance of the game table. So I didn't use airbrush, I didn't use glazes. So you don't need to be a master of glazing or a master of the airbrush to achieve fast and good results when painting working figures like this. You only need to know about volumetry and planes of light, shadow, midtones, how to interpret them correctly, and I will make a future video talking about this in a deeper in a deeper way. But only by placing the colors, interpreting the different volumes, and heads highlighting everything, you will achieve a very good working figure for sure. So guys, thank you for watching, thank you for supporting me, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.